This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Sending the manual email is not going to help you get the meeting any better. Sometimes people think if I do it manually, it'll be better. Very rarely is that the case. You could do automation, you could do AI, you could leverage tech at scale. People won't know the difference.
Welcome back, Millionaire University. We're going to have such a great conversation today about something that you may not be incorporating into your business. I know I have not been, but it's really powerful, really important if you want to see those leads and sales and be really proactive about growing your business. Today's conversation is going to break this down on how we can do this with cold email outreach. And we're not just talking any cold email outreach. We're not talking about 2011 cold email outreach. We're talking about modern, systematized, intentional outreach. And our guest today, Adam Rosen, has used this exclusively to not only grow his business, but sell his business and now launch a new one. Email marketing is not new. Cold email marketing is not new, and it might be something you have a bad taste in your mouth about. But after today's conversation, I promise you're going to look at it and think about it a lot differently. So let's get into this with Adam Rosen. Class is officially in session. Welcome to Millionaire University, Adam. So great to have you today. I am really excited to hear what you have to teach us about cold outreach and email marketing. So let's dive in and give us a little bit of your backstory and how you got started.
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
So from my side, I've never worked a true corporate job. I started my first company fresh out of college. So I had my first startup, which I had for about 5 years. I sold that company back in 2019. And the reason why I bring that up is because how we got just about every customer. And a lot of them are big brands, like think Bank of America, Amazon, Apple, Goldman, Disney, all these big brands. We didn't get them from having previous relationships in our space because, well, I started it right out of college. We didn't have a huge marketing budget because while we raised some money, it wasn't a substantial amount of money. We got almost all of our customers from just being scrappy. And the way we did it was through cold email. So when I sold the company, I started to do a lot of work with different companies. And, as you can probably relate to, and probably a lot of the audience, we all know how important top of the funnel is. New sales opportunities are for really any company, especially when you're not a big brand like an Amazon or an Apple or a Disney that just has the leads coming to them. So that led me to starting my current company, email outreach company, now about 3 years ago, where we set up sales appointments for our customers and we do it all through cold email.
Wow. Now, this is something, we'll just say it, like it gets a bad rap. People talk about cold marketing, like try and warm people up. But I have found in being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, there is a level of, yes, you want to do attraction marketing, you want to do content marketing. All those things are great and they have their place. Also, there is so much value in just getting in there and selling, right? Whether that selling is getting an appointment, getting anything that's going to move the needle forward. And sometimes content marketing and just waiting for people to come to you, it feels like you're shouting into the void. And we want to feel like we're taking action and we're doing things that are really going to generate that revenue. So I'm really intrigued by this. I think that this is something we need to spend more time on actively pursuing. And it's something that's measurable too, right? We can measure how much content we create, but when it comes to cold outreach, it's something I think we need to not write off entirely. And so we're glad that you're here because we're going to give that a little bit better of a name.
That's good to hear. Yeah, that makes me happy because you're right. Cold email does have a bad rap with a lot of people and has for a long time. And look, the case with any marketing is if you do it well, you'll get results and people will appreciate it and will appreciate the art of it if it's done well. However, on the flip side, if it's not done well, you can frustrate a lot of people and you won't get results from it. And it doesn't mean, just like with any marketing, you're not going to make everybody happy. You're always going to have some angry people with any type of marketing. Again, I don't care if it's a cold email. I don't care if it's an ad on Spotify. I don't care if it's a billboard. I don't care if it's a Facebook ad, you name it. You can't control how other people feel. You can't control what's going on in their world. All you can do is the best, most professional jobs that when people are on the other end of your marketing, they see that it's done right, it's done professionally, it's done with the true art.
Yeah, love that. Okay, so you mentioned a little bit, you have this background and you're saying, basically, I know this works because this is how we had to build our business. We weren't super connected. We weren't out there with all of this history and this client work that had gotten us into some of these bigger names. So can you go a little bit into that background again and just explain to us what you were able to do with landing these bigger clients and how you even fell into cold outreach, if that was always the plan or if you tried other things and this seemed to be the thing that worked, and why do you think it worked so well?
Yeah, great question. My first kind of taste into cold email was when I was in college. I did a 1-year MBA program because I started and ran an entrepreneur program at my school. And the reason why I bring that up is because I wanted Mark Cuban to come speak to my university, to my college I went to. So I remember I just emailed Mark Cuban. I found his email address, sent him an email, and he responded to me.
Wow.
Or maybe it was assistant, but it looked like it probably was him responding to it. And he declined. He very politely declined. But it was such a turning point for me because it showed anybody is reachable. If Mark Cuban is reachable, who else can be reachable through email? So when I started my first company, it was how we did really just about everything. We built a 2-sided marketplace with college student groups at universities across the US, and then companies like some of the brands I mentioned that would look to hire those students or to host surveys through our platform to get data on Gen Z. And how we got all of our students, over 100,000 student organizations signed up, and how we got all of our customers was, again, all through cold email. So we saw what the power of it is, but we didn't start the company really knowing much about cold email. Like literally when we started, I would one by one copy, paste, send an email, copy, paste, send an email. And then one of my advisors said, hey, Adam, there's this thing called Streak, which basically allows you to send multiple emails at once, basic mail merge software. And that was my first intro to holy cow, cold email can work, and it can also work at scale.
Yeah. Yeah, because that is something that people might run into. And I want to get into all the details and depth of this, obviously, on today's episode. But that is something that you might look at. That's not replicatable. That's going to take forever. But again, can we just play devil's advocate for the other side of this equation of, do you know how much time it takes to create one post on social media? Everything's going to take effort. And I think on shows like this, where we're really trying to help people push for the non-conventional and we're helping you build a business, because then it's a little bit more in your control. We don't ever want to give away that control. We don't want to just sit and wait for our business to work out. And yeah, I think we can't always diminish. And I know you just said it is scalable, but I think that's something that might push people away to be like, oh, sending email after email. But the fact that things like that do exist. So I want to get into that. But before we get into all of the nuance with how we can really succeed with cold marketing, can you tell us a little bit more about how that evolved and became something really successful for you guys? And what was the evolution? Did you just get better and better at it? You uncovered softwares like this, and then what did it turn into in terms of revenue and success with that original business model?
Yeah, so with the original business, and a lot of it was just test, you learn, you get a little better, you get a little better, you get a little better. And now I look back at what we were doing with that startup. We were so amateur. We were so 101 level. Now looking at what we're doing now, because of the complexity, the level of complexity that does go into cold email today in order to get results. And we'll go through all this, of course, and how to do this, how to make it easy, because really anybody listening to this should be able to leverage cold email to grow your customers. And I have a million different examples we could talk through of how different listeners could get value from it. But for us, just to give more insight, how we raised money for that startup was actually through a cold email. It was from cold emailing someone to see if he would be interested in potentially investing in our startup. He ended up becoming our anchor investor. It was how we got just about all of our customers was through cold email. I mentioned some of the big brands. It was even how we found the company that bought my company.
Wow.
Was through cold emailing different people in the college marketing space. And we ended up finding the company that ended up purchasing mine, again, through cold emailing them. And so that was really how we did just about everything. Like, I can't overstate how important it was to my previous startup. And that's why when I sold the company, I started to advise a lot of different startups. And one of those startups I was advising was a tech startup. And I remember meeting with their CEO, this probably three and a half years ago at this point. And he was like, hey man, my head of sales, she's really struggling to get meetings on the books. Can you help? And I was like, yeah, what is she doing when it comes to cold email? So I talked to her. And once I spoke to her, I saw there was such a big gap with what they were and what they most importantly were not doing with cold email. And I just called up my business partner from my previous startup. I said, hey man, I think we can really help these guys. Let's put something together for them. And they became our first customer. And again, now we've been doing this for over 3 years, servicing over 100 customers and some very big brands where we're doing all their cold email and email marketing outreach to help them get more sales appointments.
Wow. So cool. Okay. I know I'm eager to hear how we can get into some of these complexities and even starting simple with getting into cold email marketing. So where do you suggest we start this conversation, this training of sorts to get people going?
I think number one, it's understanding what is cold email and also how it's changed. Because if we understand how it's changed, then we will understand what we need to do in order to be successful.
Yeah.
First of all, what cold email is on the most simple level, it's connecting person A to person B, right? Like I want to get in touch with this potential buyer. So for me, it's a lot of heads of marketing, heads of sales. That's who I want to speak to for my company. Cold email is a way for me to target them. Now, how you do it is you get an email list. There's a million different ways to get email lists. I can go through a bunch on this session here, but you get an email list, you write some copy, you send an email, and you try to book a meeting with them. So that's the basics of what cold email is. Mm-hmm. Now, to give everyone an idea of just how much cold email has changed, about a year ago now, when we would service our customers, what we would do is we would create one cold email sending domain and a few email accounts that we would send from. The reason you do that is because you should never, ever, especially now, mass email, even 20, 30, 40 or more emails per day. You should not do that from your main domain. The reason why is if you do, you are at a high risk of being marked as spam. And if your email gets marked as spam, there's a chance that any email within your domain can be marked as spam, which means that emails to potential customers or to customers might now be going to spam. So anyone who's listening to this, if you're sending any type of mass emailing, please do not do it through your main domain. Always create a backup domain that you send from.
Okay. So what would that look like? I'm using ConvertKit. I'll speak for the most of the audience that are like, okay, maybe some people are really seasoned with email marketing. Maybe some are brand new. I have a ConvertKit address. It's through my main domain. My sending email is my name. So in that case, you would recommend having a backup domain. Is it a similar spinoff of the existing domain, or what would that look like?
Exactly. Kirsten, can you just give me what is your exact URL?
KirstenTyrell.com.
So instead of KirstenTyrell.com, it could be KirstenTyrellWorks.com or KirstenTyrell.co or try KirstenTyrell.com, like slightly nuanced variations of your domain that will redirect back to your domain. Mm. So if they ever type in that URL, they'll still go to your domain. So they'll never really know there's any difference to it.
Yeah.
And it's so important. We're like now when we work with our customers, we're creating on the low end 20 domains. We have some customers with a few hundred domains that we're sending from, 5, 6, 7, 800 email accounts that we're sending from some of our customers. So it's so important to have these subdomains that you're sending your emails from, and then that you have emails with managed sendings, that you're not oversending so that you can land in the inbox.
So is this something you can do within your email provider where you just have multiple domains within that account? Or are you having to set up a separate email provider for every single domain?
Yeah, so you'll set up a separate email provider through a GoDaddy, and it can be tough too, because look, like setting up DNS records and DNS records for context, that's basically like your registration stickers on a car. Mm-hmm. Now, about 80% of inboxes of domains, I should say, are not set up properly. So like your DKM, your SPF, your DMARC, they're not set up properly, which basically means your registration sticker doesn't exist. And if your registration sticker doesn't exist, the highway patrol, the email highway patrol are going to say, hey, I don't know if this domain is legitimate. I don't think we should throw them into the inbox. I think we should throw them into spam instead. So it's important when you set up these domains, you set up the DNS records properly so that when you do start sending these emails, Google and Yahoo and these other providers say, hey, this looks like a legitimate domain. They're not a spammer. They're not a bad account. Let's put them into the inbox.
So I'm, again, just trying to clarify, if I have ConvertKit, Flowdesk, any of these email providers, am I putting all of those domains within that provider, or I need a separate provider account for every single domain?
Got it. No, you'll be able to put that in there. So you'll be able to send all your emails, I'm sure, through a ConvertKit.
Okay. And then is it to where when you have them opt in, the confirmation emails coming from those various DNS records or various different subdomains, or so that you have a variety and you just, I'm sure there's a lot that goes into tracking this, right?
Yeah. And I want to make sure there's a distinction so everyone listening. There's differences between newsletters, which are opt-in, and cold email, which is not opt-in.
Okay.
So newsletters like a ConvertKit, which is we use Beehive for my newsletter, but ConvertKit's another newsletter provider, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are warm leads. Those are opt-ins versus cold emails. That's where you would use a tool like we love Instantly. Instantly.ai, they're a phenomenal cold email tool. It's where you can get lists. It's where you can send emails. It's where you can manage all the replies, etc. But that's more cold email focused. So like you would put all your domains and all your emails into a tool like an Instantly, and then you could just send out all your emails through there.
Okay. Thank you. Because I needed that clarification. I'm still stuck in like normal email marketing channels in my head. But you're right. The difference between, and when you even said buy a list or acquire a list, We're not talking about a list of warm leads that you've generated. We're talking about buying one where somebody's gone through and used maybe platforms or softwares to scrape all of the emails for certain CEOs, certain industries, so that you can just do the cold outreach. Okay, maybe everybody else listening is like, yes, where are you at in this conversation? I'm there. I'm with you. We're transitioning my brain to a different type of marketing. Okay, that makes total sense because you are, with the cold outreach, you don't want to be getting flagged right away. And it also makes more sense that we're not doing this individually through my typical outbox of sending email after email. So it's just more of the automation and the systematization of cold outreach. Okay, we're all up to speed. We're on the same page.
Awesome. I like that. That was good working through that. That was good.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to the next step. We want to make sure that we're being intentional about the separation of that and having those multiple domains that we're sending from. And then what's the next step in making sure this is actually successful?
So we have the domains, the emails, we call it your sending infrastructure.
Okay.
Now, part of that is you want to warm up these email accounts. And all these different tools do this. Basically, what it does is it sends like fake emails to different email addresses so that it looks like this is an email that's used to sending and receiving emails. You should do that for about 2 to 3 weeks. Once that's ready, that's when you can start sending actual emails to your prospects.
Okay.
That goes into like, hey, you don't want to just create the domain and email, then blast out a bunch of emails. If you do that, Google, Yahoo, they're going to say, hey, this is probably a bad sender. Let's mark them as spam. Your domain's be blacklisted right away, and you got to start the whole process over again. So you want to warm it up for about 2 to 3 weeks. Now what's really important is understanding who is our ICP. So who is our ideal customer profile? Maybe you're reaching out to CEOs or founders or owners of companies with under 10 employees. Maybe you're reaching out to people in a marketing department with 500 to 1,000 employees. Maybe you reach out to a certain sector like financial services, and maybe you reach out to operations within those companies. Whatever your ICP is, that's what we want to figure out next. Now, why that's important is because we want to get high quality lists so that we can reach out to those folks. You don't want to just send an email to anyone and everyone because one, that'll be very expensive. And two, you're going to get a lot of people that are not actually a potential customer of yours.
Yeah.
Like for me, I don't have any interest in talking to the CFO of a company with 3 employees. That's never going to be a buyer of mine. I don't want to waste my time doing that. So I want to reach out to heads of sales, heads of marketing at my type of companies because those are the only conversations I really want to have because they could be my actual customers.
Yeah. Okay.
So you want to figure out who your list is, then you can easily get lists through tools like an Instantly or through other providers.
Okay. And those are things that you're going to be paying for, right? It's an asset that you're investing in to save the time of going and identifying all of those emails and those people yourself.
Correct. Now, the good thing, though, is lists used to be so expensive. A year ago, we used to sell lists. Not often, but like some people come to us and buy lists. And we would sell for 30 to 40 cents a contact. And that actually was a really good deal because most other list providers were much more expensive. There were some list providers that are like over $1 a contact. Now, because of tools like an Instantly, as I mentioned earlier, you could get lists for like literally pennies, like 2 to 3 cents a contact. And there's other providers where it's even cheaper. And there are also very high quality lists out there too. So lists, yes, that is an asset you need to pay for, but they are a fraction of what they used to cost and much easier to get than they used to be too. Like it used to be a pain in the behind to get them over a year ago, where if you didn't know the space well, it was really hard. Now it's very easy for anyone to get lists.
Okay. Good to know. So I want to rewind just a little bit too, because when I was clarifying the difference between your newsletter, your subscription emails, and then sending these, because I've wondered this before, what is the legality? And I know you've explained this with where you've just acquired this list, you've paid for this list to plug somebody into an email marketing platform. Is there anything that's wrong or illegal about doing that where they didn't opt in, like where they didn't give you that consent to receive consistent emails? And then that will take me into another question, which is, do you set up automation with these to where they're getting the follow-ups automatically based on triggers of if they opened or not? Do you know what I'm asking? Because sometimes I'm like, can I just plug somebody who reached out to me but didn't necessarily opt in into my list? Because that happens. I actually get added to lists when I've done cold outreach before.
When it comes to cold outreach, yes, you can reach out to them. You do. Technically in the US, there's something called the Can Spam Act, which you technically have to follow. It's very easy to follow. Anyone could just Google what things you have to follow to be Can Spam compliant. About 6 or 7 things, pretty straightforward. So as long as you follow those things, you are Can Spam compliant. With that said, the Can Spam law is not something that really anybody should be concerned with, but I'm not giving legal advice there. You can easily just follow the 6 to 7 things you have to do to be Can Spam compliant. So that's number one. Number two, yes, we have automations in place. And the nice thing about these email technology tools are so much better than they used to be.
Yeah.
Instantly is just a great tool. We don't get actually anything for me shouting out Instantly. They're a phenomenal tool. But the reason why I like them so much is you could do everything inside of them, like getting lists, like sending emails, like, Kirsten, to your point, managing the replies and creating automation. So it makes things very easy where we set a campaign and maybe we send 2 follow-ups or 8 follow-ups. If somebody responds to that, they're removed from the sequence. If somebody unsubscribes, they're of course removed from the sequence. It is so much easier than what my team had to do a year ago or 2 years ago, where they would have to manually go in and remove everybody. Because of tools like Instantly, it makes your life so much easier.
Yeah. Well, I nerd out over that side of things in my business with email marketing, with selling my own stuff in the traditional sense with the newsletter list. So I can imagine this is probably, and I want to actually get into the different ways that you can use the cold outreach, but I can imagine this would make all types of management so much more simple, because I think that's where a lot of things get lost in the shuffle as an entrepreneur. When you're trying to manage, you have your organization boards of who have we reached out to, when do we need to follow up? But the more you can automate that with these systems and triggers, then this is how you're able to really manage mass outreach. And I'm sure you agree with this. It's a numbers game, right? Anything in business is a numbers game. You reach out to a certain amount of people, you're eventually going to book some clients. And so how have you guys factored that into your business in terms of playing the numbers game with cold outreach versus waiting for people to come to you?
And Kirsten, you said this a few times, and I agree. What I like about cold email is it's a proactive. Now, I am a big believer patience is a virtue. But on the other side, I also did grow up in New York, so I'm probably not always the most patient person. And there's a lot of people I know. My sister, when she started her business, and she now works with my company full time now, but she would do a ton of content. And it was such high quality content. She would post on her Instagram constantly, and she would get 11 likes here, 19 likes here, 4 likes here, and just no customers, period. But her Instagram had the most beautiful, high quality, value-adding videos, but it got her nothing. She spent so much time and energy on it. Versus what I love about email is it's so proactive. If you want to get to VPs of marketing with companies with 1,000 or more employees, you can get to them like that. You can pinpoint just to them. And then to your point, Kirsten, while there's a lot of things you have to do it right, it still is a numbers game where the more people you're able to reach out to, the more responses you're going to be able to get. And it doesn't take a ton of time. You're not pounding the calling to get results. If you set this stuff up right, it does not take a ton of your time up. For context, I have a small team. It's just 8 of us total. That includes my co-founder and I. We're managing about 3,000 email inboxes right now. About 3,000.
Wow.
And there's only 3 people on my team whose job it is to respond to every single email that comes through and to book every meeting for our customers. 3 people that are able to handle over 3,000 email inboxes. That's why anyone who's listening to this, it is not, I know it may sound, and I know it may sound from what I'm talking about, that this is a huge process and super, super complicated. It's going to take so much time of yours up. I promise you it's not. We do not have a huge team at all, and we're able to handle this stuff with a lot going on. There's over 1 million emails, 3,000 inboxes. We're getting hundreds, if not thousands of replies every day, and we're able to manage all that.
Wow. That's really encouraging. And my question to spin off of that even is, do we wait until we have all of the automation and everything set up to even start launching? Or is there an ease into this whole process to where maybe before, I know you mentioned you have to warm your domain up for a few weeks and send and whatever, but beyond that, when we start buying lists, is it, let's do it manually for a little bit and then we plug in the automation? Or is it, let's set up all the automation first before we even start sending out an email?
There's no reason to do it manually. Not unless you see, hey, here's this one person that fits what I'm looking for. There's sometimes I'll come across somebody, maybe they post something on LinkedIn, like I'll send them a very personalized email or I'm just say, hey, I saw something, I'm going to send you a manual email. Every other meeting that gets booked for me, I don't do anything. My team does it all. It's all automated. The automation is not hard to do either.
Yeah.
It's very straightforward where, no, you might as well automate the whole thing. You don't have to overthink it. Sending the manual email is not going to help you get in the meeting any better. Sometimes people think if I do it manually, it'll be better. Very rarely is that the case. You could do automation, you could do AI, you could leverage tech at scale. People won't know the difference. It'll look like it's as personalized as if you sent a one-on-one email.
I think even part of the reason I'm asking that is sometimes in business, we can get so hung up on setting up all the automation first without even starting to test out to see what emails are going to resonate with people and what's going to work. And so we build out, I do this with sales emails. You build out a whole entire sales structure and automation, and then you find, oh man, I should have tweaked this and started to send it first before we started putting it to the masses. So I think more that's what I'm asking too. Is there any benefit to making sure that the system and the whole thing works? And I don't mean your system, because I'm sure all of the tools and the way that you approach it does work, but even with your specific subject matter, your offer, what you're pitching, all of that before you integrate this mass system.
Yeah, the reason why I say to do the system is I'm not trying to undercomplicate it.
Yeah.
It really is not like the whole system, at least of the automation system of writing the copy and getting the list and sending emails and creating the sequences. This is stuff that we're talking like an hour or less. This is not going to take you days and days. And I totally agree. Everything is an iteration. It's your A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing. Like you're constantly testing things, but you want to allow the market to give you the data of this, is this working or is this not working? And if we're doing things manually, we can't really do it at scale enough. If we don't do it at a large enough scale, the data we're going to get in return may or may not be reliable. So my recommendation is to test it, give it a month or two, see what the results are. Unless you're getting crazy results in a week or two and you know it's really not working for whatever reason, you can pivot and change things, but it's very easy to change stuff. I would create automation from the start, mainly just because it's not like this is a 3-week process of implementing it. It'll take you an hour or 2 hours or less, depending on if we're or someone else helping you with it.
Yeah. Okay. That's really encouraging because I think as an entrepreneur, we look at all the things that you have to build out and it does usually feel like it has to take weeks or several days. So to hear is we're talking hours to get this set up makes it feel a lot more attainable and you just want to get going. You just want to start collecting the data at scale. So that makes perfect sense. Now, when it comes to back to that numbers game, and you're mentioning in the beginning, we don't want to be sending more than 40 emails a day per domain. So you acquire these huge lists. How often are you having to go and find new leads compared to we really have a lot that we can work with several weeks of people here because we're not sending to thousands of people per day? In my mind, I think sometimes I get into this scarcity of after a week, aren't you done? Haven't you reached out to every human being that you could possibly work with? What do you do next? Or how long are you looking at? Is this just a never ending? There's always more people to reach out to?
There are some companies that have 274 companies that could be a potential customer. For them, it's a lot harder. You have to do a lot of ABM, account-based marketing strategies together. Most companies, especially startups, are the opposite of that, though. Like most of us have huge universes of potential customers, like 5,000 customers, 10,000 customers, 100,000 potential customers. There's always new customers coming in. Like one of our customers, they focus on a very high net worth individual for their offer. You would think they would have a very small universe. Their universe is about 150,000 people or so. And you would think they're very targeted and niche. So no, this is stuff like even for my company, I've been doing cold emailing for my own company since we started 3 years ago. Actually about two and a half years ago, because we didn't try to get new customers for the first 6 to 7 months. But even our universe is huge and there's always more companies coming into our universe. There's always new ways you can approach people that you've already reached out to. So there is typically never-ending lists for most people that you can keep tapping back into. And when it comes to number of emails you can send, so the simple rule of thumb is it's about 20 emails per inbox per day. So that's why it's so important to build out the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So if you have 10 emails that you're sending from, you can send about 200 emails a day. If you have 100 inboxes, you could send about 2,000 emails a day and you go up from there. So you could send as many emails as your infrastructure allows.
Okay. That's cool. I love it. There's so much. My wheels are spinning as I'm thinking about how I can incorporate this. And I want to get into, now that we've talked about structure a lot, and I'm sorry we've hammered that in for a good chunk of time, I know that there's also strategy within the outreach email itself. And I know this has probably had to evolve. And like we said, there's iterations and it depends on your industry and what you're selling. Before we even get into the meat and potatoes of what that should entail, are there certain industries that are harder, that are more regulated, that you can't really get away with cold pitching, or does pretty much anything go when it comes to that?
Pretty much anything goes. I'm trying to think if there's a specific industry that was like legally more of a pain. The one that's probably always was the toughest was when we would reach out to lawyers, mainly because the lawyers, they would come back with some legal jargon sometimes. There was nothing wrong with emailing them. They just were a tougher audience to go after. But not really. The key is just how interesting is your pitch. We've worked with some businesses where it hasn't worked. I remember we worked with a really nice company. They did like printer repair work in Northern California. Really nice people, but we emailed a ton of people. We tried shifting their pitch a million different ways, but it's really hard to find people that are interested in repairing printer work. That's a very niche product that not everyone's looking for unless your printer's breaking. So like that was tough to get meetings for when it comes to cold email. But it's really just how interesting is your hook? How interesting is your pitch? How interesting is the problem that you solve? How compelling? That's really what it comes down to. And it can work for really just about any industry.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into that. What is the pitch? How do we perfect that pitch? And what have you found that seems to work when we have some things against us, where email marketing in general, people are masking emails. We're not necessarily seeing the same deliverability and open rate because of regulation on email. So once we overcome even just that by having some good structure in place, what do you see working to where people aren't glazing over, where they have hundreds of emails hitting their inbox every day? What have you guys found to work that might across the board be a smart approach?
So first, let me tell you about a couple of basics when it comes to email sending and email structure. And then I'll give you some things that we use that have 2x and even more our replies and meetings that anyone can implement today. You could steal it, have fun with it, and go have a field day. So when it comes to structure, a simple way to think about it is you always want to keep things short and sweet. So the first line should be something like, what's the purpose of your email? One sentence on its own line. The second should be, what's the problem you solve? Next is, what's your solution? One sentence. Next, what's your social proof? So I've worked with brands X, Y, and Z. I've been featured on A, B, and C. Then your call to action. Hey, are you free for a 15-minute call? That's a simple structure anyone can use. Take that and your email will already be better. Mm-hmm. Number two, if you want we have a free ChatGPT prompt. If you want access to it, just send me over an email. I'll give you access to it to recreate some of our higher performing emails for your company that you could take. It'll give you some follow-ups. It'll give you our main email. It'll even put something called spin tags in it. Spin tags, basically what that does, it's another reason cold email has changed. Before you could get away with having one good piece of copy. Now that's not good enough. Mm. What spin tags does, it randomizes your copy so that every email looks slightly different.
Interesting.
So that Google and Yahoo and these other providers, they don't realize that this is a mass email. Mm. It's just to trick the providers. So you can have access to that ChatGPT prompt. We'll either put them in show notes or just send me an email and I'll get that to you.
Perfect.
Now, the third thing, when you get advanced, there are some amazing personalization tools that exist today, like a tool like Clay.ai, which some you might be familiar with, maybe some of the listeners are familiar with. Personalization in email used to be like, hey, I saw you went to this university. What do you think about our mascot? That is crap personalization. It's a pet peeve of mine. Nobody cares. It adds no value to me.
Yeah.
Now personalization has gotten so good where it literally seems like I just did research on your website for 30 to 45 minutes and just wrote you the most manual email to try to get your attention. Yet I just sent it to 10,000 people and every email looks hyper personalized. Like I went through your website, I checked everything out about you, and here's a personalized email to you. Now it's very complicated to do this, so that's only for the advanced folks. But if you can learn tools like a Clay.ai, it's 2x our response rate, our meeting rate, and it can for you too, but it is complicated. I'm very happy that my co-founder runs that side of the business because when he takes me through his Clay tables, it does make my head spin a little bit. So it really is only the advanced level of email. Now, some basic hacks I'll give you guys, if I don't love that word. Subject lines, our highest performing subject line is just simply hi and then their first name. I used to not like that subject line, but it so greatly has improved our response rates. So it's our best subject line. And then if anyone wants to put this in their PS, we literally had people shout out on LinkedIn, our customers, even though it was us that wrote it because they don't know that we exist. We are in an AI marketing channel and somebody was like, hey, I saw the best email ever. Look at this PS in here. This is the smartest thing. And it ended up being us that wrote it. We want everything to be a win. And what is so important in emailing is, yes, getting meetings, but what's also very important is getting replies, even if they say I'm not interested. The reason why is because you want your domain health to be good. If your domain health is good, your deliverability is strong, you're not going to land in spam, right? The problem is when we get crappy emails, people maybe will mark them as spam or they just won't respond.
Yeah.
When that happens, your email sender reputation drops. So one of the things that we implemented is a PS that basically says, hey, we believe in win-wins. Just by replying to this email, because it helps our email reputation, we're going to donate 5 bowls of dog food to a charity. We have a Slack channel that has like puppy replies. We have a Slack channel that also has mean, nasty responses. We used to get 2 to 3 mean, nasty responses a week. I don't know the last time we have gotten a mean or nasty response. People respond so much in kind with that puppy donation. This is creative. I love puppies. Hey, I'm not interested, or this doesn't fit my company, but thank you so much for donating to puppies. Or we just got one of our newest customers. They got on the phone with me because they simply said, hey, I love the puppy PS. I don't know if this is a fit, but I'll give you 15 minutes. They ended up buying after that first call.
Wow.
So it also gave me an opportunity with someone I probably never would have had a call with. And then every month we donate to the charity we use, a company called greatergood.org. We donate to them, and it's the best investment we make. Puppies are happy, they're fed. Our clients are happy because they're getting more meetings from it. It's a win for everybody.
Yeah. And that's really just based on if you respond, even if it's no. If you respond to this email, we're going to donate to this charity.
Exactly, because
cool.
we don't want to feel like we're paying you to take a meeting. We're bribing you to take a meeting with our customer. We just want, hey, just let us know. If you're not interested, say no. That's better to us than no response. We'll stop emailing you. We'll donate to the charity. Boom, done. That's it.
Yeah. And have you found this, you just aligned to you use this obviously with a lot of your clients. You said that you saw people shouting this out with a client that you'd written this for. You obviously specialize that to the client interest, or is it usually in alignment even with their niche and like what they're selling?
Yeah, I feel like puppies are in everyone's niche. Who doesn't love puppies? But we do have one customer that donates trees. So for them, we plant a tree for every reply we get. So we also donate trees for them.
That's cool. I love that. Now, I'm going to hopefully not embarrass Adam because I don't think it's embarrassing at all. I think it's really cool. I have my own podcast and I'm curious. I wasn't going to bring this up, but I'm curious if this is automation even when you guys are pitching, because this is more than just getting clients, right? This is pitching to podcasts. We've had people on here share with us how we can get booked on more shows. And I'm hearing you and I'm like, man, if I combine what I've already learned from that component and then I'm utilizing some of this cold outreach to get my message out there on other shows. I'm looking right now at an email you sent from my personal show to come on there. And I'm just wondering, is this an automation that you have set up too for yourself, for your guys' business and the automation of getting on podcasts?
Yeah, at this point, I've been on over 60, 70 podcasts and some very big podcasts too. Some of the biggest podcasts in the world.
Yeah.
And it just comes from cold email. I get very targeted. And you were on a list where it's like, hey, I only want these type of podcasts that are big enough. When I first started a couple of years ago getting on podcasts, I didn't really care. I just wanted to start getting myself out there and getting the company out there. But yeah, I do cold emails to get on podcasts, and it's gotten me on some of the biggest podcasts. And those podcasts sometimes will refer me to other podcasts. So even though I didn't cold email them specifically, it was a cold email that got me on one podcast that led me to another. So yes, cold email, all it is, again, it's connecting person A to person B.
Yeah.
And now because of cold email, Kirsten, we know each other. I'm on your podcast. Maybe there's a way we could work together, partner together in the future, or maybe we just become friends, or maybe we just refer whoever to you. Like who the heck knows? But all cold email did was, this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for cold email. Us having this conversation.
Yeah, it's true. And just for context, we're talking about my show. We actually reached out to Adam for this episode today. So it's
Okay.
true. Like you have to put all the irons in the fire. Getting on shows, we've seen you on other popular shows, which is why we reached out to you and wanted to bring you on as a guest. We saw that you really are at that level. And so if you're willing, and I say this in a roundabout way to say, if you're willing to invest in this cold outreach and doing the proactive work to get onto podcasts or to get in the room with the right clients, I've witnessed this firsthand. It's all about the network building. It's about the connections, like you just said. And so you doing the cold outreach, getting on certain shows is also going to lead to even more that you can't even see right now. It's not even measurable, the amount of continued success that you're going to have from getting in the right rooms. So yeah, I just thought it was a kind of funny side story. I haven't responded, but I was just looking and I was like, because I get tons and tons of outreach, but I've seen yours.
Sure.
And I looked and I was like, yeah, you have that PS. It's not the puppy one for this one. But I even wonder, I'm like, yeah, it just makes you feel like I want to respond to you and let you know if it is or if it isn't a fit for whatever that you're reaching out to. So I think that I say all of that to say Adam knows what he's talking about. He's practicing what he preaches and you're walking the walk. So it's cool to see that this at play on a side tangent over here.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about a little bit of the content and some strategies and some hacks to have this be more successful. Is there anything else you want to add into ensuring that as we take the time and do the effort with the cold outreach, some things that can help us to be successful?
Yeah, because the last piece that I feel like is maybe the most underestimated part of cold email is the booking of the meeting. And the reason why I say that is because everyone thinks, hey, if somebody said they want to talk to me, how hard is it to book a meeting? We used to have a package when people would work with us, like our lightest tier was, we're going to do everything, but then when somebody says they're interested in talking, we're going to hand that lead to you, and then you're going to book the meeting on your own. For context, when we schedule a meeting, when somebody says, hey, I'm interested in a conversation, we'll book anywhere from 80 to 90% of those and turn it into an actual appointment that happens. When customers, we don't do this anymore because it didn't work for them. Our customers will only book about 10 to 20% of people that actually wanted to speak into a meeting. So what's the biggest difference? Like, why are we able to book the meetings at such a high clip versus why has some of our customers struggled to book what should be meetings into actual converted appointments? And the two biggest things is number one, timeliness. So one of the biggest KPIs my team has that they send every week is how long did it take to book a meeting after somebody said they're interested. And every week we go down every single customer and see how long it took to book the meeting. What we've seen with some of our customers when we used to offer that package is they would take a long time to respond to that meeting. So that's number one, length or time to book the meeting, because time kills all deals in sales. Same goes for emails. Number two is then what are the basic systems do you have in place to make it easy to book? Systems can be something as basic as a Calendly or a HubSpot link to make it easy to schedule a meeting. But it also has to do with following up. So my team has templates where when somebody agrees to a meeting, if they don't book the meeting, they're going to get 8 or 9 follow-up emails to encourage them to book that meeting. And we're going to send that follow-up every 2 days or so, because that meeting, that appointment is so important. But oftentimes, if you don't follow up, those appointments could just fall up because people are busy. So that's really the last piece of email that a lot of people underestimate, but I want to make sure everyone takes seriously, because you don't want to, it's like anyone who likes football. Like if you take the ball all the way down to the 2-yard line of the other team, but then you don't get into the end zone, it doesn't matter. The same goes for email. If you do all that hard work, you get somebody who wants to talk to you, but then you don't book the meeting, you don't actually get on the call, then all that work is for now.
Yeah. Yeah. So make sure that all of the ducks are lined up all the way to the very, very bitter end. And I love this about mapping and automation is what is the customer behavior? What is the client? What is the outreach behavior going to be? Make sure you've planned for every single scenario, whether they don't respond or if they do respond and they are interested, cover all the bases, and then you're going to win the game.
Exactly. My old baseball coach in high school, it always sticks with me, is preparation is the key to success. And to your point, Kirsten, it's you want to make sure that you have the systems in play, basic systems. They don't have to be super complicated. Just, hey, if somebody doesn't respond, are they getting automated emails to make sure that they get your emails and hopefully will respond? Mm-hmm. When somebody is interested, what's your template that you're going to use to book the meeting? If somebody says, hey, now isn't the right time, what's your template? If somebody says, I'm not interested, what's your template? What are the basic systems to save you a lot of time on the back end and also help you get better results on the back end too?
Yeah. Wow. I love this. This really was timely for myself. And I think probably a lot of people listening where we really do want that proactive approach to our business. And this doesn't feel scary. It doesn't feel weird. It doesn't feel icky. It feels like great business. It feels like a great proactive approach to having success, reaching the right people. Because at the end of the day, there's great ways to connect. And if we try to just like hands off everything that we're doing, then it just makes the process so much longer. So I appreciate you sharing both sides of this with the strategy and the structure, and then also what needs to go into this to make it actually hit and connect with the right people and lead to success long term. So thank you, Adam. You know your stuff. I appreciate you indulging all of my curiosity and my coming to grips with understanding the whole entire thing. And it was just great. Thanks so much.
No, I appreciate you, Kirsten. I love the work that you're doing. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I appreciate being on the podcast.
Yeah. So where can we continue to connect with you if this is something like myself that people want to learn more about? They really want to get into this and get started. I'm sure you have some resources that we can dial into after hearing the basics here on the episode.
Absolutely. So the easiest way to learn more is if you go to EOCworks.com. That's my website. And if you have any questions related to email, please don't hesitate to reach out. My email is adam@EOCworks.com. Whether you want our ChatGPT prompt, if you have any questions about cold email, no question is too small. So don't hesitate to reach out. Whenever I get in these podcasts, I always love the initiative that people take when they're listening to whatever type of personal growth podcast, whether it's ones about business or sales or marketing or self-development, whatever it is. I always give people so much credit for taking the initiative to learn and grow when you don't have to. But yeah, anyone who's listening to this, please don't hesitate to reach out if I can be helpful in any way.
Thanks again, Adam. This is great.
Thank you, Kirsten. I appreciate it.
What a powerful episode. Thank you so much again, Adam, and our other show sponsors for making this masterclass episode possible. I know that I learned a ton, and I'm sure that you did as well, as is the case with all of our phenomenal episodes here at Millionaire University. I think it's really important to consider there are so many different ways to build a business, so many different marketing strategies. And what you really have to listen to is what aligns with you, what makes sense based on what you're building and how you want to show up and how it fits within your lifestyle and everything that you're trying to do. So if this was right up your alley, go check out everything that Adam is doing and sharing, and use cold email outreach to help expand what you're trying to build. And be sure to check the show notes for all of our free resources that we provide to you to help you build a business where you can graduate rich, not broke. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Class dismissed.